spoilers for Secrets of Strixhaven is upon us, so we're going to go through and discuss the mechanics that have been revealed from the set and just sort of talk about the design implications of these different mechanics.
We're going to be looking at the mechanics article that's on Wizards' official site, so feel free to follow along if you want. Check it out. Otherwise, we're going to be kind of going through one at a time.
Links in the description for the article, and let's get started.
Distraction makers.
So, first off, we have probably the most talked about mechanic, prepare.
Prepare.
Wow, is it an adventure? Is it omen?
There was an omen that means we need to get prepared so we can go on the adventure.
Okay. So prepared says, while it's prepared, usually attached to creatures.
I think only attached to
creatures? I think so far.
Yeah.
You may cast a copy of its spell. Doing so unprepares it. That sounds vague, so I'll explain. The example that they have here is the card Studious First Year. It costs 1 green. It's a creature, bear wizard. Fantastic. It's a 1/1, and it says this creature enters prepared. And it has a spell on the other side. This is why we mentioned adventure and omen. It's very similar to that. The spell on the other side is rampant growth. Everyone knows what rampant growth is, but just in case, it's 1 and a green. It's a sorcery that says search your library for a basic land card, put that card onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle. So you essentially just have this creature, and it has a spell stapled onto it. And when it's prepared, it can cast that spell for its mana cost. And then usually there's some other way of preparing it. In this case, the Studious First Year, there's no way to re-prepare it.
Other than flickering it, removing it from play, putting it back
Other than
place
all the fancy magic shenanigans that you'd normally do to try and get your normal ETBs back online.
Yeah. So you basically get a 1/1 creature with a rampant growth stapled to it. This is, like we're saying, this is in the same sort of design lineage as Omen or Adventure, where in the other instances of this, specifically with Adventure, you would get to be you would cast the spell, that creature would then go into exile, and then you could cast it as a creature later. So this is basically reverse Adventure, which is prepare. That's kind of interesting, right? Because like, what's the opposite of going on an adventure? Is it to like prepare?
I don't know. I guess
maybe there's something there. But so you basically play the creature of this first, and then you can play the spell later.
Yeah. Overall, I like how they've been using this. I think they had a lot of fun working on this mechanic. And I think that having this sort of like secondary resource enabler that you can activate gets around tap effects. It also means that it broadens the design space a little bit. Lots of different things that you could do to try and like re-prepare something. They've mostly, I think, been having fun by attaching very powerful spells. So most people that have been following the spoilers have probably seen this card, Emeritus of Ideation, and it's, whatever, creature, it's prepared, blah, blah, blah. But the spell that's attached to it is Ancestral Recall. If you're unfamiliar with this very, very powerful spell, it's 1 blue instant, target player draws 3 cards.
Which would be really exciting if you could just play this for 1 blue and draw 3 cards, but you can't. You got to play the creature first. It enters prepared, then you can play Ancestral Recall. So this is Ancestral Recall plus a 5/5 flying creature.
So this is essentially a 6 mana 5/5 flying ward 2 that draws you 3 cards.
Yeah,
which is not like terrible, but not great.
Yeah,
at 6 mana.
It kind of not all that exciting next to Quantum Riddler, basically, kind of from what I've been hearing. So, yeah, I don't know. This mechanic's interesting. It also sort of falls in line with what's the sort of natural power creep of that's sort of been happening to creatures, where we started off with creatures that were just creatures, right? They were a card that had power and toughness that can attack your opponent. And then we had creatures that would have tap abilities that would act sort of as spells, things like whatever, where you tap them, they deal 1 damage. So sort of like little spell-like effects, but you had to choose whether or not you were going to sort of use them to attack as a creature that turn, or you were going to get the spell-like effect that they would have. And then we sort of moved into creatures that had enter the battlefield effects, which were basically spells that were just stapled to the creature. So you got the creature and the spell. Then we got enchantments stapled to creatures. And now we're sort of coming full circle in a weird way in that we literally have a spell that comes with this creature.
Right. I don't know. It's really weird because I'm surprised they haven't done this mechanic sooner.
Sure.
It seems kind of like a no-brainer, but I'm also surprised that they didn't open up the design possibilities for this. They kind of shot themselves in the foot early, I think, by the way they phrased it is that while this creature is prepared, you may cast a copy of its spell. Doing so unprepares it. But like a prepared mechanic could be so many different things, right? It could have been a thing to turn on and off any sort of an ability, right? It could have been while this creature is prepared, it has death touch, right? It doesn't have to be tied to like a spell that's directly attached to this thing. So I'm kind of surprised that they didn't open up the design space to that possibility, and instead it's really specifically like this has to be a creature and it has to have spells, especially because prepares is such a generalized term.
Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah, because like it could just be like this creature, you can think of this as like this creature has a counter that it comes into play with that could be spent in whatever way this creature can spend that counter. That's effectively what this mechanic is, but they basically have said that it will operate as here's a creature and it has a spell attached to it. And that's how it functions. It's also interesting to compare this to something like Sakura Tribe Elder, right? Which is a very similar effect, where it's a 2-mana 1/1 creature that you can sacrifice to go search for a land, right? A rampant growth, basically. But at that point in time, you'd have to choose, like, I'm going to sacrifice this creature to go do the rampant growth. Where here, you technically spend 1 more mana to do that effect, but you do it over turn, like over a turn. Right. But I don't know, like, I feel like Sakura Tribe Elder is probably just better than this card, right? I think in terms of like value for what you're getting, but like, I don't know. It's kind of weird. Because like, for instance, with this creature, you play it on turn 1, you could use it as a blocker, but then you're not going to get the rampant growth, so you're probably not going to use it as a blocker turn 1.
But Sakura Tribe Elder, you can use it as a blocker.
You would block and then sack it and get the land, yeah.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it depends. This, technically, if you want to use flicker effects or whatever, there's ways of sort of manipulating the ETB to where you can keep having this, so you essentially just keep having a rampant growth. Yeah. But that requires a second card. Sakura Tribe Elder doesn't require a second card for you to be able to chump block with it.
Flicker decks are eating good in this set, and they have been for a while.
Yeah. Wizards loves flickering right now for some reason.
The other thing I wanted to bring up was Prepare and the sort of like very powerful, I guess, Emeritus cards, which are the ones that have like Ancestral Recall on them and things. Those to me feel a little bit like the Suspend cards from back in Time Spiral, where they had done this kind of gimmick before, where they're reprinting these older cards, but sort of giving them a new restriction, right? We had Ancestral Visions from Time Spiral that was basically Ancestral Recall, but it had Suspend on it so that you had to wait. You get Ancestral Recall, but you have to wait a certain number of turns before you get it. Balanced effectively because they had Suspend counters on them now. So this to me feels pretty similar in that. There might be some... the difference there with Suspend is that there were ways to sort of cheat that with Cascade. Interesting, I think unintended
consequences of that.
Yeah, so there might be some kind of unintended consequences here. Obviously, Reanimator would be good with this, but I don't know. It doesn't seem good enough as a Reanimator target. I think I'd rather, put something much more powerful into play. But
I think so far it's made for really splashy marketing. It's really, I think, selling the power level of the set without it actually being that powerful, by being able to call back to these cards. I mean, there's a card that has Channel as its spell, right? Like that's big and splashy, right? But until you really look at it and play it out, you're like, okay, well, this is actually probably fine. So yeah, overall, I think it's cool. I think it's fun, but I don't think it's... So far, it doesn't seem game-breaking or anything. Next on our list, we have, I think it's pronounced repartee. Repartee says, the example they have for the mechanic, repartee, I don't know, repertoire.
Repertoire.
Is it repertoire? It ends in 2 E's.
It's a $10 word.
Yeah. It's the card Conciliators. Jesus Christ, dude. Conciliators Duelist. Jesus. Sure. Costs 2 white, 2 black. Is a 4/3 creature. And it says, whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell that targets a creature, exile up to 1 target creature. Return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. So the part that is the actual mechanic here is that whenever you're casting an instant or sorcery that is targeting a creature, that is then generating some sort of an effect. Okay. So another example is Graduation Day. It's an enchantment, costs 1 white. That says whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell that targets a creature, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. So that's all the mechanic is.
So one of them happens to blink, but not all of them blink things. Okay, gotcha. So it's kind of like Prowess, but for spells that target things?
Yeah, not non-creature, instant sorcery, and it has to target a creature.
Okay. I don't know. It's interesting. It does kind of fall in line with like, here's some incremental advantage for something you probably were already doing, but I suppose you do have to build it into your deck at least a little bit, where if we compare it to something like Landfall, you're just sort of getting that from playing lands, and every deck plays lands. So I don't know. There's something interesting here, but nothing super groundbreaking, I guess.
I do kind of wonder, like, obviously there's going to be lots of effects, especially in draft, for targeting creatures. But I wonder how much is taken into consideration of like when someone's trying to turn the corner on a player, right? If they're on the who's the beat down scale, right? If they're trying to sort of get that upper hand, you more than likely as that player are going to be targeting the other player's creatures. So the fact that you get that benefit to help you sort of get over that hump, I wonder if that's where these sort of mechanics come from, or if it is more of like a generalized, we need some sort of draft workhorse mechanic here, and we know we're going to have a lot of instants and sorceries, so we're going to do it like that.
Yeah, and it does kind of line up with the prepared mechanic, right? So if you're preparing creatures that have these extra spells, so you can sort of this is moving Magic still closer to all you would need to play as creatures, which is kind of awkward, but like, yeah, you basically would have the creatures that have the spells stapled to them, and then you have this that gets to synergize off of the spells that are stapled to the creatures. So yeah, it makes a certain amount of sense, I guess, within context of the set, but I don't know. It's fine. It's fine. Not really anything super exciting.
Yeah. Next, we have Opus. If you didn't care for the last mechanic, you're going to love this one. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, something happens. The ability word Opus highlights triggered abilities that trigger whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell. Each Opus ability has an initial effect and an additional or alternative effect if you spent 5 or more mana to cast the spell that caused the Opus ability to trigger. So the example they give is the card Color Storm Stallion. It's 1 and a blue and a red. It's a 3/3 creature with ward 1 and haste, and it says Opus. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, this creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. But if 5 or more mana was spent to cast that spell, create a token that's a copy of this creature. So the effects aren't always the same. You're not always going to get a copy. You're not always going to get a +1. But essentially, it's whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, something happens, and if 5 or more mana was spent to cast that spell, something even greater happens.
Yeah, this feels like they're designing in another attempt for them to design for 60 card and commander simultaneously. Most of the time in competitive 60 card, you're not going to be playing spells that cost 5 or more. Like, that's just not usually something that happens. But in commander, you often do. So we basically have a card that is at a 60 card power level unless you'd play something with 5 or more, and then at a commander power level if you're playing something with that costs 5 or more.
I do kind of wonder how much of this is also trying to incentivize players to play higher mana value things in 60 cards.
The competitive pressure that's put on decks to play stuff low mana cost, I don't think that's really viable. But maybe it could be that one of these is powerful enough that it does make that kind of a thing happen, but seems pretty unlikely when we've got Is It Less is running around and everything that's really low to the ground. So
yep.
Badger Mole Cub.
Oh, I didn't even realize. Yeah, this card's crazy. It makes a token that's a copy of this creature, but it doesn't go away at the end of the turn. So you just end up getting a token. Okay. Yeah, I mean, so far, I don't know if the video is going to be out by the time we have this video come out, but we have a video coming out called about gimme mechanics. And that's essentially what these last two mechanics have been, is just you're going to be casting instants and sorceries, especially if you're playing Strixhaven cards, because there's going to be lots of instants and sorceries, or creatures that have instants and sorceries. So while you're casting those, here's more stuff.
Here's more value for free. We're just going to give it to you.
Yeah. Next, we have the Witherbloom mechanic. That's what it's called, right? Witherbloom? Yeah. Okay. Golgari. It's called infusion. Infusion is another ability word. A lot of ability words in this one. It's 3 in a row. Highlights abilities that care in some way if you've gained life this turn. So the example they have is Old Growth Educator is 2 in a black and a green. It's a 4/4 creature that has infusion. When this creature enters, put 2 +1/+1 counters on it if you gained life this turn.
I got to be honest, this one is really boring.
Yeah. I think it's funny because I think they came out so strong with Prepared. Prepared feels like almost like a no-duh. Like, I'm surprised they haven't done this mechanic before, and they come out with all these splashy spells being attached to these creatures and stuff, and then everything else is just like, well, you're casting spells.
Yeah.
Here's more stuff.
Well, you're gaining life. Here's some more stuff.
Yeah.
It's also like this is Witherbloom from the first Strixhaven set. Like this doesn't feel any particularly.
I don't remember
it's
what
not
the
really
Witherbloom
different.
mechanic is.
Well,
But
they had like pests as kind of part of their theme, but also like you built that one deck.
Witherbloom or Willow Dusk.
Willow Dusk. Yeah, that just has this exact theme, right? It's all about gaining life and losing life. And here, gain life, get a bonus. I don't know.
Yeah. Less of a gimme mechanic than
you would
opus
have to
and
have some way to do that. Yeah.
repartee.
Yeah, repartee.
I'm sure as hell we're pronouncing it correctly. But if anything, though, that makes it like worse. It means like, you have to have, I mean, look, there's so much life gain at this point in the game that it's like, it's probably fine.
Almost a gimme just because life gain has been stapled to so many things at this point.
But
great with food, you know? You get to infuse your food with something and then eat it and you get a bonus.
I don't know if they put food in this, though.
Well.
All right. Next, brand new mechanic, Flashback. Never heard of it.
Wow. I'm having a flashback right now.
Yeah. If you're not familiar with Flashback, I'll quickly explain it. You may cast this card from your graveyard for its flashback cost, then exile it. So yes, you cast a spell, and then you can cast it again from graveyard with a different cost, then you exile it afterwards.
Finally, a trade-off mechanic.
That's true.
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah.
It's an old one that they used to use all the time. But yeah, this is basically kicker from the graveyard. You just get to recast the spell from your graveyard. Great mechanic. Fantastic mechanic. Been around a really long time. And it's great because you have to make a choice as to whether or not you want to pay the additional mana to get this effect a second time. There's also a lot of counterplay because they can interact with your graveyard before you're able to flash it back. Super cool mechanic.
Players know it's also known information, so they know that that's a possibility, so they can play around that, which is interesting.
Okay, my question though.
Okay.
The real question. Did they bring back the tiny little graveyard icon on the card?
Oh, they never will.
Nice.
I know. Next, we have increment. Increment is a keyword that represents a triggered ability found on creatures. Whenever you cast a spell, if the amount of mana spent to cast that spell is greater than the power or toughness of the creature with increment, you put a +1/+1 counter on the creature. So we're getting more +1/+1 counters. I feel like this is just kind of becoming evergreen mechanic ever, is now just +1/+1 counters. And it's more of that gimme if you're going to cast a spell. I think you were bringing it up before we started chatting, that at least there's a cap on this, right? It's capped by the creature's power and toughness. So at least there's that, but, it's pretty straightforward. Yeah.
+1/+1 counters.
+1/+1 counters for casting spells, which you're already going to do. Next we have Paradigm.
Paradigm.
All right. I'm going to read verbatim what Paradigm does.
Okay.
All right.
Yep. Without context.
Then exile this spell. After you first resolve a spell with this name, you may cast a copy of it from exile without paying its mana cost at the beginning of each of your first main phases. So, okay, let me read the card.
Yeah, let's read the whole card because look, I'm having a hard time with this because I know what it's supposed to do because I know it's based on the epic mechanic.
I'm not even sure if I do know what it's
But if
supposed
I
to
was
do
to
now.
like read this in a vacuum, I feel like I would be confused. And I'm sure people in the comments are going to be like, no, what are you talking about? How can you be confused? So easy. It makes perfect sense. I'm like, look, guys, it's strange.
The card is Improvisation Capstone. It's 5 and 2 red. It's a sorcery, and it says exile cards from the top of your library until you exile cards with total mana value 4 or greater. You may cast any number of spells from among them without paying their mana costs. And then it's Paradigm.
Yeah, which starts with then.
Then exile this spell. So the reason that I think I'm hung up, not only is it because I don't think they needed to say then exile the spell, and rules lawyers out there can correct me, but so Judging for the Win can explain this to us in the comments. That'd be fantastic because we need some help. I don't know why it couldn't just say exile the spell. Then starting the parentheses with then is very confusing. And then after you first resolve a spell with this name, so this means you can only cast it for free once.
No, I don't think so.
Why?
So this is the part that does feel a little confusing, I think, which is you cast a spell once, it's resolve, it sees itself resolve, then it gets exiled, and then every upkeep or every first main phase, you're going to play this again. So,
but wait, it says then exile this spell.
Yeah.
after you first resolve a spell with this name.
Right. So that would be when you cast it.
I first resolve a spell. Like,
It does.
why is it
slightly
phrased that way?
Well, let's look at Epic real quick and compare the two, because Epic does essentially the same thing, but Epic makes it so you can't cast any other spells for the rest of the game. It's only that spell forever, which was funny.
Yeah, I remember reading Epic for the first time, and I thought it was really fun. And then I realized it's probably terrible, but
It's not good. Yeah.
it sounds like a fun mechanic. Epic says, for the rest of the game, you can't cast spells. At the beginning of each of your upkeeps, copy this spell, except for its epic ability. You may choose new targets for the copy.
Right, because they didn't want to like Epic to continue to scale upon Epic, right?
Right.
Because like if you didn't remove the Epic ability from the recasting of the spell, you would get Epic
you'd get
again,
more
and
and
you
more.
copy it again and again and again and again. But Paradigm basically tries to, I think, avoid just saying cast the spell again without Paradigm, and instead templates it in this way, which I don't know why.
After you first resolve a spell with this name, so you can't cast two of these.
It would not copy itself. Oh, that's why. That's why. Yeah. Here's the problem. Okay, so Epic says you can't play any other spells now, and what that means is it eliminates your ability to cast another copy of the Epic spell. So Paradigm does this by saying the first time you resolve this spell, you get to do this ability. So if you cast the spell again and it wasn't one of the copies, it was another copy of the spell that was in your deck of the 4 copies you were allowed to play outside of the commander format, you would not exile that one to have it be continually cast on each of your main phases. That's why it's worded that way, which is confusing, but I get it. That was the workaround for making it so that you could continue to cast other spells besides this one, which Epic does not allow you to do.
I don't like it.
We did it.
Yeah, it feels very confusing.
I think it's a cool idea.
Yeah,
but I think that
like
the
idea.
complexity and execution was maybe not worth it.
I think where I get confused is like Epic does not sound confusing to me.
No, it's very clear. Yeah. It sounds like, oh, this spell is epic, which means this is all I get to do forever. Yeah.
I also don't know if they needed to make sure you couldn't cast multiples of these spells for its Paradigm.
Just let people
cast
have
multiple.
the extra copies
because
again
it's
and
already
again.
it's
Like,
a 7 cost spell. Like,
yeah, that's fair.
I don't know. Like, it's
Honestly.
a 7 cost spell.
I guess like if you cheated it out somehow though, maybe you could like have a bunch of copies. I don't know. I agree
You
though.
can cheat so many things out at
Like
this point.
who cares,
Just,
right?
yeah.
You're right. Why can't you just play this spell 4 times from the natural copies of it?
Besides, this card's red. Who's playing red at 7 mana?
It's a commander card.
Well, then no one should care if it's a commander card.
Well, you
can only play one anyway.
Anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Look, cool mechanic.
Yeah, I like the idea of the mechanic a lot. I just
Epic's
kind of wish it
cool.
was phrased better.
Yeah, the complexity and execution here is a little tough, which is sort of that comprehension complexity that we've talked about before. Mark Rosewater brings up as being actually the most problematic of complexity because it's hard for players to even just wrap their head around what a card actually does. So, yep, that's it.
Well, I would be very curious to see what their internal testing was like with new players reading this card.
Apparently, it was fine because they put it in packs.
It must be fine.
Everything's fine.
Yeah, I must be wrong. Okay. Next, we have Converge. It's an ability word that cares about how many colors were used to cast the spell, essentially. So the example they have is Rancorous Archaic, costs 5 mana, 5 colorless. It's a 2/2, and it has Converge. This creature enters with a +1/+1 counter on it for each color of mana spent to cast it. So this just feels like sort of more vivid mechanic
It's
from
like
Lorwyn.
Vivid or Domain. Yeah, they're doing
Yeah.
a lot of this right now. Maybe they're setting up some kind of a 5-color deck for Standard or something. with these
Reality
kind of-
Fracture, maybe. That's
Yeah,
where they're
maybe. Yeah.
gonna bring it in.
Which, like, sure, that's fine. But I don't know. It's fine. It's just another.
It feels like more kind of draft mechanics.
Yeah, that's a good point too, because it's a multicolored set. So you might be playing, somewhere in the neighborhood of 3, maybe it's splash a 4th color if the lands are good enough in limited, maybe not. But if you do, you can be rewarded by drafting this particular archetype. So it's a kind of a workhorse, but not particularly interesting. Nothing particularly special.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of, in a way, it's almost like in a way, it's kind of a neat way of playing catch up if you happen to have to splash into a third or fourth color while drafting.
Sure.
It makes your deck less efficient because you have more colors. However, you get the payoff of if you're able to use more colors to cast this thing, you get more of a benefit. So
just a good workhorse.
Yeah. And then finally, the most important mechanic of all, we have book.
Is it kind of like equipment?
Nope. It's just a book. All right, the example they give here is Diary of Dreams. It's a
Diarrhea Dreams?
No, Diary of Dreams.
Oh, okay.
I needed to enunciate more.
All right.
It costs 2. It's an artifact book. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, put a page counter on this artifact. You can also pay 5 mana to tap it to draw a card. This ability costs 1 less to activate for each page counter on this artifact. So I'm assuming books will have pages. Maybe page counters are going to be like a thing, or it's just whenever something wants to reference a book.
Cool.
So
books,
but so far there's no references to books.
Okay.
I am much more excited for Strixhaven than I am for TMNT. I do have some biases, although I'm not the biggest hater of Universe Beyond. But I do think also this set feels a lot more cohesive than Lorwyn. Lorwyn definitely felt like, even though I liked a lot of the art and I liked the world overall of Lorwyn, it felt mechanically like not quite aligned and like it was kind of all over the place. It wasn't sure how much to invest into Shadowmoor versus Lorwyn.
Right. Well, they were trying to pack a lot more in, I think.
Yeah. But this is like wizarding. More wizards.
It is interesting because it does feel quite a bit like Ravnica, which I think the first Strixhaven set also did. You know, like we have a lot of the same sort of Ravnica guilds that have just been rebranded. But they also kind of do pretty similar things to the Ravnica guilds, but like the flavor is different, I guess. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, you know, being somebody that I like Ravnica a lot. And I think Strixhaven is fine. I'm excited for the what are they called? The archive cards?
Mystical Archives. I think honestly,
that's the coolest.
What everyone's so
that's
excited
the coolest
for.
thing about Strixhaven, honestly.
Yeah. It feels like Wizards like stumbled into that. Like they didn't realize how popular it was going to be, and now they're just going all in because they know how good it's going to be.
I think they're just some of the best looking cards in Magic, so that's really the highlight for me. Mechanics wise, I don't know. Seems fine. Nothing super knocking my socks off to make me feel like this is doing anything particularly interesting. Prepared is fine, but again, if you're sort of relying on the kind of gimmick of, hey, it's an ancestral recall stapled to a creature, I'm kind
of hoping that they end up errataing Prepared and broadening it a little bit because I think it is a mechanic that could be broadened really easily and have a lot more different knobs to sort of turn. And then if I can ever figure out how Paradigm works, I will, I'd be curious to see what other cards come out with that mechanic. For when I play Commander.
I think what's kind of weird about Paradigm for me is that it removes some of what made Epic special, right? This idea that's like, oh, I can only cast this spell, and it creates this weird friction and limitation to like, oh, well, what am I going to do now? How do I like make that work as a strategy? I think is interesting. It's an interesting puzzle to solve where Paradigm is just, I don't know, I guess just like taking the flashy bit and removing the friction and just letting, okay, well, now you just get the spell every turn in addition to all the other stuff you can do.
Wonder if they just hard limited it somehow, like making it just to where like you just can't cast instants and sorceries for the rest of the game or something.
That I think, like a half step, that would be cool.
It turns into an enchantment or something like that. Maybe not because it's removable.
You could remove it. Yeah. Probably an emblem.
Oh, emblem.
Honestly,
that'd be cool.
I wonder if emblems would have been a better way to do this mechanic.
I'm surprised they didn't do that.
Like
actually.
Instead you gain an emblem that says you cast this spell.
Because you can't really interact with stuff in Exile. So,
well, you can. There are ways to interact with stuff in Exile.
Yeah, but how
there's a handful of stuff that like pull stuff, like pull from Eternity or whatever. I think removes a card, puts a card from Exile into graveyard.
Not enough that should be considered.
Right?
I feel like an emblem. It's weird. They haven't really done emblems that much in a while. Probably because they're not interactable. But again, it's like if there's so few things that interact with the Exile.
Yeah, I just feel like this would have been I guess the trick is that like no, you still word it the same way. I guess the first time you resolve
create a
spell,
copy of the spell. Exile the spell.
Well, no. You the way I think I would do it was I would say the first time you resolve the spell, I would still use that or a spell with this name or however I'd still have to word it that way.
You can just say that
if you don't have an emblem, you gain one.
It's saying that like long as you have the emblem at upkeep, exile this spell or
just copy the spell.
Copy the spell.
Yeah. I guess you then would have to provide an additional game piece, but I think players would just use this spell as...
When has Wizards been caring about that in the last 3 years?
That's fair. I think emblems would have been cleaner way
I think that
this.
would have been cleaner, and I also think it probably would have felt cooler.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's already pretty splashy and bombastic for a set, so I think bringing emblems back and these really huge spells would have felt really cool.
I think, and I also think opening the door to like having effects that use emblems maybe is fine.
I mean, it's certainly like this.
It almost like creeps in a new type of like permanent in a way.
If they
it's like a spell permanent. You could use it that way.
You could then, if they really wanted, they could start introducing cards that interact with emblems. Reality Fracture would probably be the one to do that, maybe, because emblems are used so commonly by planeswalkers and stuff. So,
right. Cool. Okay. Well, that's Strixhaven. That's the mechanics of Strixhaven. So,
yay, nay.
I mean, whatever.
Out of 10,
it's fine. It seems like a fine set. I'm glad it's not Universes Beyond.
It's fine out of 10.
Yep. Fine out of 10.
If you enjoyed listening to us talk about Strixhaven and the mechanics and you're excited about it, I don't know, whatever. Feel free to give us a like and a subscribe, maybe a comment down below.
If you want to have some fine out of 10 conversations, you can join our Discord. Links in the description. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Sounds like a euphemism.
Bye. It does. A little bit. Oh, maybe it is.